Welcome to the Daily MBA, where business wisdom is served fresh and fast, straight from one of the top MBA programs in the world. I'll give you summaries of my lectures and readings, as well as the most important insights gained from an MBA, so you can apply all of this knowledge in every business. Let's get started. In today's last episode around marketing, I'm going to start talking about consumer behavior, so we can understand the challenges behind changing behaviors in others and also in yourself. So, consumer behavior research usually aims to describe, explain, predict, and even change people's behaviors. But if you've ever tried changing your own behaviors or someone else's behaviors, your partner, your friend's behaviors, you're going to know that this is a challenge. There are 4 methods for changing behaviors, and I'm going to present them in a way that you can remember them by assigning professions to them, but I'm not saying that this is how all of the people that are doing these professions are acting. Just it's going to be for memorizing it in a simpler way. First approach for changing behavior is going to be the lawyer's approach, and this will be consisting of regulations. So you want to make laws, you want to ban people from doing specific things, and this is going to be an approach that's commonly used. What is one main issue with this one? You are taking freedom away from people, and so it's not something that people usually like when you have all of these regulations or rules, and this may also lead to disagreements. So it's a good approach, it's not the best. Second approach would be the economist's approach, and this one is related, of course, to incentives. In my previous episodes regarding economics and also strategy, I was talking about the power of incentives. So either bad incentives for avoiding something or good incentives for promoting something. What is the bad thing with this one? It's very expensive to implement, especially if you want to do it for the long term. And then also, it kind of just makes people act for the incentive, not because they're changing their true behavior or why are they doing something. Third approach would be the advertiser's approach. So this one will be persuasion. And there's one magnificent book by Robert Cialdini called And with persuasion, what you want to do is show people information and try to persuade them and to act them in a different way. But of course, this one's going to be the one that has the least tangible change effects that you can see, because just giving information or persuading people might work once, but not repeatedly. So you're going to be encountering some issues. So which is the fourth and final method? Hopefully one that doesn't restrict freedom, isn't expensive, and doesn't require perception. Well, we do have one. And it's a Nobel Prize winning idea. It's the behavioral scientist's approach, which is called nudge. And there is a magnificent book about this called Nudge, but today I'll explain the very basic comments and the key concepts that are related to nudge. What nudge wants to do is basically leverage your existing behaviors, your existing habits, into molding the way of a better choice. And so there are 4 key concepts that are going to lead you to better understand what nudge truly is. The first one is Libertarian Paternalism. And this is the basics behind nudge, because nudging will influence the behavior while respecting the freedom of choice. So the ones that came up with the nudge idea were talking about this concept that initially seems contradictory, libertarian paternalism, but it's what it's actually giving. It still gives you the freedom of choice that libertarians would like, but it includes the paternalism because it wants you to have good decisions. A second concept that you might find useful for nudging is choice architecture. And this is going to be a very important element in the nudge because the design of the context in which people make decisions is going to be crucial. And what you want to do through nudge is change this choice architecture. And you can change it either two ways. Usually it can be through defaults or through social norms. And these are the remaining two concepts that I wanted to introduce. First, let's look at defaults, which I guess you know what they are. They are the preset options that are used unless a user actively chooses another alternative. Or we may also have social norms, which are going to be something that is perceived as common or desirable within a particular group. So now, nudge may sound like a weird topic that sounds fabulous, but let's put specific examples on it. One of them might be for organ donations. And here, nudge has been proven to increase the amount of organs donated just by using the default. It's not that people don't really want to donate their organs, or there may be some people that do, but just it's a process that's very hard and people usually don't even know what to do about it. So what some governments have implemented is the nudge method in order to set as a default that you are donating your organs unless stated otherwise. And they always give you the option of choosing the other like not donating decision. But what people are going to do is people will follow the defaults, because we tend to do that when we're agreeing to lots of stuff that may happen on your phone, when you're filling out forms, on banks, or on government things. So whenever you go to a place, you're most likely going to be filling out the default decision, even though you know the things. So just by changing the default to yes, I want to donate my organs instead of no, I don't want to donate them, and having an extra step to make people donate them has increased dramatically the amount of organs that are being donated around the world.
This episode is brought to you by Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. In breaking news, leading scientists worldwide are conducting experiments to determine if Reese's Peanut Butter Cups are the perfect combination of peanut butter and chocolate. However, it appears the study was inconclusive, as the scientists couldn't help but eat all the Reese's. Because when you want something sweet, you can't do better than Reese's. Find Reese's now at a store near you.
Another important example might be social norms, so what is perceived as common or desirable within a particular group. And for this, I'm going to give you a very interesting experiment that I read in the book they did in Amsterdam. So in Amsterdam's airport, they were finding that the men's bathrooms were usually very dirty. And one thing that they did was painting a little fly or a little thing on the toilet, so when guys were peeing, they would try to hit the fly. Nobody was telling them to do it, but this was like a social norm, so something that was desirable within this particular group. And just by doing that, they cleaned most of the bathrooms because men were aiming at that fly. So this is going to be giving the freedom of choice. You can do whatever you want, but we are changing your choice architecture in order to make a better decision. If you want to read more examples, I would suggest reading the book because it's fantastic, all of the things that can be done through nudge. But also what I'm just going to suggest briefly, again, if you want more information and this topic is interesting, I'm not really saying anything, but I'll suggest 7 steps for implementing a nudge. And so, first one is usually going to be reviewing and analyzing the decision-making environment. You want to go with the place and see what is wrong and what is the thing that's usually leading people to act in a specific way. And that would be second step. You want to identify specific bottlenecks in the decision-making process that is hindering the desired outcomes that you want. The third step would be understanding the psychological factors that are influencing the behavior in this specific setting. So they may be cognitive biases, heuristics, social influences. For example, something crucial for organ donors was knowing that the psychological factors were mostly that people were lazy filling out the forms, not really that they didn't want to donate their organs. So if you can understand what is the psychology behind them having this specific behaviors, this is also going to help you address the problem. Fourth is going to be applying the insights from all of the behavioral science that's presented in the book of Nudge into designing nudges that will address this identified challenges, so all of the concepts that we saw above. Fifth, you would start experimenting and testing the effects. And this is crucial because with Nudge, you can't really be sure if people are going to take that decision or not. You're going to give them the freedom to do whatever they want, so you want to start experimenting and testing to see if whatever you're changing in the choice architecture is leading them to the desired outcomes. The sixth step would be fine-tuning and adjusting the nudges as needed. And then the seventh one would be just changing your intervention and integrating nudges into the decision-making environment in order to create a lasting and positive change. So now let's look at all of these steps into a specific example, which might be a goal, just improving healthy food choices in a cafeteria. And so step number 1 would be analyzing the layout, the menu, the design, and then any other existing influences that are on the food selection process. And this is a true problem that many schools are trying to target. How do we get people to eat more healthy? Well, first step would just be analyzing the layout of this choice architecture. Second would be identifying the bottlenecks. So recognize if there are any obstacles like the lack of information, the cognitive biases, or social pressures that might be affecting all of this decision making. Third one would be understanding the psychology. So maybe you have to understand here how social norms are impacting those decision-making processes. Are kids eating more pizza because they really like it or just because their friends are doing it? So you have to understand the psychology behind these decisions. Then, fourth step will be layering into the behavioral insights. So if people, for example, I found in my research, are more likely to choose the default options, we should set a healthier option as the default option in our choice architecture. So all of the kids are now going to start receiving a salad, and then if they want, they can add some extra stuff. We're going to start then, fifth part, experimenting and testing. So we would roll out a pilot program in a specific area where we can measure and validate the effectiveness of the nudge, and then we would fine-tune it. So if the nudge is not producing the desired results, we would adjust the message. So maybe what we needed wasn't the default, what we needed was social norms, to see one kid eating vegetables and having another kid right next to him eat that. So we would have to start changing depending on our findings. And lastly, if the nudge successfully encourages healthier food choices in the pilot, then we could expand the implementation into other locations. This is what the nudging team is doing right now, especially with governments, because nudging is found to be very cheap. It's not costly as incentives. Again, it's not restricting freedom of choice. And also it doesn't require persuasion. It's just you are changing how decisions are made. If you want to learn more about nudge, be sure to check out the book that I'll leave the link in my comments. Make sure to give me a review if you enjoy the content that I'm generating. And I'll see you next week so we can learn about more MBA things.